Hello, everyone. Welcome to Options with Doug, streaming live on Monday and Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure: all Bookmap limited materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure: trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. The best way to get in touch with me is through Discord. My name on Discord is Doug P. Also in Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Doug chat channel. You can post questions, comments, and content related to the topics of my presentation and the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. I'm also on X. My name there is @Doug Pless. I just want to let you know I have a couple of announcements. First of all, Bookmap deals are coming. So if you're looking for a Black Friday sale, something like that, there should be some announcements. I think later on this week. I don't have any details right now, but just know that Bookmap deals are coming. And second, the next Pro Trader webinar series begins this Friday. And here's the schedule. So it begins Friday and then goes through next week. And I believe these will be broadcast on Bookmap Discord as well as YouTube. All right, let's get started. Here are the key tenets to my approach to trading. I believe that options trades and market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price in many stocks and futures. That certainly applies to large cap tech stocks like the Magnificent Seven stocks, as well as the equity index futures like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index, SPY is the ETF version of that index, and the ES futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with ES futures. And for the NASDAQ 100, NDX is the underlying index, QQQ is the much more liquid ETF version of that index, and the NQ futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And just like the S&P 500, when traders buy and sell puts and calls in NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with NQ futures. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Doug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a two-step process for trading, and the first is planning, and I use a positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned in the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a thesis regarding the expected trading range and volatility for the day as well as a directional bias. And there was a great setup utilizing this approach in the S&P 500. We'll take a look at that today. And the second step in my process is execution. I look at real-time order flow in Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow in Spotgamma Hero to confirm my thesis and for setups. And when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on an underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options, depending on the asset as well as the way you like to trade. Questions and comments are welcome, and I will be watching both the Options-Doug chat channel as well as the chat in YouTube for your questions and comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. And hello, Aguz. Welcome. Glad you're here. And pardon the pronunciation. And hello, Stephen. Welcome. Glad you're here as well. Here's my agenda for today, Monday, November 24th. First of all, I want to go over news items, economic data, and events for the week. Then I'll go through my positional analysis. Then I'll review some setups from earlier today. Then I'll take a look at the live market. And when I get to the live market, if anyone has any stocks they want me to take a look at, please let me know and I'll be glad to do that. All right, let's get started with news items. So first of all, here is the regular schedule for data releases, and I'm not certain about any of this because of the recent government shutdown. So let's start with tomorrow. Normal schedule, PPI, scheduled to be released at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, as well as retail sales. I believe that data will be released, but it's from September. And then on Wednesday, durable goods orders will be released, as well as GDP. And then PCE at 10 a.m. So again, I'm not certain about that. And then one thing I am certain about is Thursday is the Thanksgiving holiday. So in the U.S., that is the Thanksgiving holiday. Markets will be closed, reopen on Friday, and then close at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. All right, so some data most likely coming out tomorrow and Wednesday, and then Thanksgiving on, Thursday and Friday. All right, so let's move on. Let's take a look at the positional analysis now. So let's go to the S&P 500, and we'll start with the ES futures and Bookmap. And nice rally today. Maybe the AI trade is back in play. So let's take a look at a couple of key levels on this chart. So first of all, after the cash open, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, the SPY 662 acted as support, and then S&P 500 found resistance at the 6670 volatility trigger. Finally broke up above that level after testing it for an hour up to the 6700 level. And again, it took, looks like it took about an hour and a half to break somewhere between an hour and a half to break above that level. And that was the obvious target for today. We'll take a look at Trace in just a minute. And hello, Rishmal from Pakistan. Welcome, glad you're here. Glad to see you. All right, so key levels today, 6670 volatility trigger. Took about an hour to break above that level. And then the 6670 6700 large gamma 2 resistance level. That was a large positive gamma strike on the S&P 500, and it took about an hour and a half to break above that level. And now next target up above is the SPY 670 large gamma 4 level. All right, so let's step back. Let's take a look at a higher time frame, and then we'll get back to this chart. I'm going to start with SPX, the underlying index, and I'm going to go to a 1 year, 1 day chart. And of course, the big rally began in April, and then has now entered a period of wide range, consolidation and chop. So let's take a look at some of that. So this is the October 10th tariff tantrum based on President Trump's announcements on China tariffs. Market rallied up to about 69.20. And then this is the last week, the NVIDIA AI puke. And the market, SPX, did trade down below that tariff tantrum low, but is now trading well above it. All right, so let's zoom in a bit. Let's take a look at a 30-day 1 hour chart. So now the tariff tantrum on October 10th is over 30 days in the past. So let's focus on more recent price action. And in recently, I've been pointing out the support and resistance zone between right around 67.50 to 67.70. That level acted as resistance on Thursday. So NVIDIA reported earnings after the close on Wednesday. Market was very happy about it. NVIDIA, other stocks, markets gapped up on Thursday, then reversed sharply lower. and traded down again below the 1010 tariff tantrum low, and now trading back above that. And also SPX today is trading up above the upper daily expected move. All right, so let's take a look at those expected moves. The dashed purple lines are showing the lower and upper weekly expected move. This is based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from last Friday. Those levels remain in place for the entire week. Then the dashed blue lines are showing the lower and upper daily expected move, also based on the options market, again based on the closing price for SPX from the previous day. Again, that would be Friday, last Friday. Those levels change every day, and they can move above or below the weekly expected moves. All right, so SPX again trading up above that upper daily expected move. And we'll talk about the reason for bullishness in just a couple of minutes. All right, let's take a look at the spot gamma levels on this chart now. These are based on gamma-weighted open interest. They're provided to Spotgamma subscribers on a variety of trading platforms. Again, this is Thinkorswim, a 30-day, 1-hour chart. I'm going to point out the key daily levels. First of all, here is the absolute gamma strike at 6,000. That's a strike with the largest absolute positive and negative gamma, and it remains at 6,000. Next level up is the put wall at 6,500. That's a strike with large net negative gamma that can be expected to act as support. And above that is the volatility trigger. You really can't see the label there. It is obscured by the 0 gamma level, but it's at 6670. And that is Spotgamma's proprietary volatility and gamma flip level. Below that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade with price dash their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. Above that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is positive. In a positive gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price dash their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility. Note that is based on Spotgamma's older total open interest model, and we'll see a current view of gamma based when we take a look at the trace gamma heat map, and that is based on Spotgamma's newer synthetic open interest model, and it paints a little bit different picture of gamma. And then finally, the call wall remains at 7,000. That's a strike with a large net positive gamma that can be expected to act as resistance. And if the S&P 500 decides to continue higher, that would be the next primary target toward the end of the year. All right, so those are the key daily levels. Let's wrap up our view of SPX with a 1-minute chart. So here's the reversal last Thursday and that support resistance zone that I've talked about. And here is Friday with SPX trading down below the 1010 tariff tantrum low, which was right around 65.50, and then trading up. And it looks like this uptrend that began around 11 a.m. on Friday continues. And today, SPX gapped up. Let's zoom in on this just a bit. SPX gapped up. And again, I pointed out the resistance at the volatility trigger at 66.70. Then a move up to 6,700. More resistance there. And now SPX is broken out above that level, and also above the upper daily expected move. All right, that's SPX. Let's take a quick look at SPY, the other underlying index component. Then we'll get back to Bookmap. All right, so there's SPY. Before the cash open, shown in the lighter gray shading, SPY found support at the 660 large gamma 2 level. And then after the cash open, support at 662. breakout above the volatility trigger, and then resistance, and then support at the 667 zero gamma level, and then the 670 level, a large gamma 4 level is up above. All right, that's SPY. All right, back to Bookmap. So I have SPY and SPX key levels on this chart, as well as key ES levels. So here is the ES upper daily expected move. I do calculate that independently from the SPX expected moves. And note, I post the expected moves for SPX, ES, and NQ every day in the Options-Jug chat channel in Discord. So that's every day the day before. All right, so as I mentioned before, key resistance at the 6670 volatility trigger, breakout above that level, and then again resistance at 6700 and a breakout above that level, and it looks like that was in pretty large volume. You can see the large green volume dot as well as the volume bar down here. So a breakout above the 6700 level in volume. Next level up above is the 670 level. And note there is a difference in price between ES and SPX. And today it is somewhere between 16 and 17. Looks like it maybe 16 and a half would be the 16.5 would be the best. I'm using 17, so I'm using ES minus SPX equals 17. So I'm showing the 6700 level at, that's SPX 6700, at ES 6717. And I do post those index relationships that I use every day in Discord as well. All right, so that's the S&P 500. Nice rally today. As the expensive puts are starting to lose value, traders are selling that puts, VIX is dropping, and that is definitely bullish for the market, as market makers can buy back their short hedges. And we'll take a look at setups in a couple of minutes. All right, so that's the S&P 500. Nice rally today. Let's take a look at NASDAQ. NASDAQ even stronger today. I know there are a lot of lines on this chart, so let's step back. Let's take a look at the underlying index charts and see if we can isolate some of those levels. I'm going to start with QQQ. Let's zoom in on this. Dark shaded areas are regular trading hours. So you can see this rally began overnight, really around 4:30 a.m., 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m., and then continued after the cash open as options traders came in. So QQQ has traded above its volatility trigger. That's a key level there, 600. That is the absolute gamma strike. That's L1, as well as the volatility trigger. A little bit of resistance at this 602.0 gamma level. And now QQQ continues to trade up. Looks like it's consolidating just above the 605 level. That's just a round number level. So a very strong rally in NASDAQ as well. All right, let's take a look at the other underlying index component. That is NDX. So NDX, all the spot gamma levels are down below, with the exception there's one level up, I believe, at 25,500. So several hundred points higher. NDX trading above its volatility trigger. That's at 24,475. And then the absolute gamma strike at 24,500. And around that level acted as support just after the open. NDX didn't quite get to that level, but the rally that began last Friday morning continues. And that's the recovery after the NVIDIA AI puke. All right, back to Bookmap. Let's take a look at some of those key levels. QQQ 595. Here's the NDX 24,500 large absolute gamma strike. Around that level, acting as support. QQQ 600 absolute gamma strike volatility trigger. Resistance. Then breakout above. And then again, now NDX is above all of its visible Spotgamma levels as well as QQQ. And note, here's a key level for NASDAQ, the upper weekly expected move. And that NQ is almost there. And that's for NQ. And you can't see it here, but the NQ upper daily expected move is right at 24,700. So the label is obscured there. And Gurdeep, welcome, glad you're here. Ask, can I show NVIDIA hero signal with newer models of call and put lines? Sure, yeah, I'll get to that when I get to stocks. All right, so NASDAQ, very strong rally today. Last time I checked, it was well over 2% higher for the day. All right, so let's wrap up positional analysis. And for the S&P 500, I forgot to mention there were minor shifts in levels. For the SPX, volatility trigger shifted lower, and for SPY, the volatility trigger shifted higher. And for NDX, the volatility trigger and call wall shifted lower. And note the NDX call wall is lower than the put wall, but again, all those levels are well below. And then for QQQ, the volatility trigger also shifted lower. All right, let's take a look at Gamma now, and this will help to explain some of the strong rally. So I'm going to go to the Trace Gamma heat map. Let's start with the S&P 500 Equity Hub. So this is based on Spotgamma's newer synthetic open interest model. And this line here is showing market maker's position, which is, and this is gamma notional, and this is the zero line. So below this level, market maker's total position, negative gamma. And remember, in negative gamma, we're looking for higher volatility, faster movement. So that is, and this is updated once a day. And then now we'll take a look. Let's move on to closer to real time now. Let's go to the Trace Gamma heat map. Red shading showing negative gamma. Blue shading, none shown in this range on the chart, is positive gamma. So we're seeing a sea of red here, all negative gamma. And there's one exception here. It's not really showing up on the heat map, but this bar right here. This was the 6,700 level that I mentioned before, and that was the very obvious target for the move higher this morning that began, I think, around 950, something like that. That was the very obvious target, and this is the hero signal right now. So we'll take a look at that in just a moment. All right, so traders taking positive delta positions today, right around 950. SPX reverses higher, and a sea of red, negative gamma, looking for higher volatility, faster movement, and that so far that has played out with the target of 6,700 and now up and beyond. And by the way, these GEX bars on the left are showing market makers' position. So this is indicating market makers are long calls here. Long calls here at 6,700, short calls here, and traders, of course, have the opposite position. So this is market makers' response to this short call spread. All right, so now let's move on to real time, and I'm going to start with the S&P 500 as always, and I'm going to start by taking a look at what options traders have been doing today. So this is the HERO signal. This is available to Spotgamma subscribers. HERO is HIRO, Hedging Impact Real-Time Options. So this is real-time now. So we're moving on to execution, moving on to real-time. The white line on this chart is price, and the purple line is the HERO signal. And I am using the older model here. I'm going to be jumping from one symbol to the next. I find it a little bit easier for presentation purposes to use the older model. And Gurdeep, when I take a look at NVIDIA, I'll switch to the newer model if you want to see that. All right, so what this is showing is traders taking positive delta positions except for about the first 20 minutes. So again, white line is price, that's SPX, and the purple line is the HERO signal. So this indicates when traders are taking negative delta options positions, they are buying puts and or selling calls. Market makers take the opposite side of those trades, and they have to sell ES futures to hedge their delta exposure. And all that did is set up a good long traders reverse course, started buying calls, selling puts, and S&P reversed higher. And again, with the exception of those consolidation zones that I mentioned, resistance levels, S&P 500 continues to move higher. So let's shift to puts and calls now. And I'm going to have to jump back to avoid the auto zoom. All right, so the orange line is showing calls, the blue line showing puts. So what this is showing is traders are selling puts, shown by the rising blue line, and they're also buying calls, shown by the rising orange line. And this is a little bit unusual to see that much put selling. But again, this is coming off of a high volatility environment, and either traders are taking advantage of that high volatility and selling puts, or they are getting out of their puts that they bought last week. So in this high volatility, if there's not some very obvious catalyst that's going to move the market down, the price of those puts, those expensive puts, is going to start to drop, and market makers that are short hedges can buy back those short hedges. So that's what's going on today. Volatility dropping. Let's see. So VIX is down between 11 and 12% so far today. All right, so the index, and this is, we've already taken a look at a couple of these. That is the SPX, SPY, ES, and XSP. Traders selling puts, buying calls. Market makers take the opposite side of those trades, and they have to buy ES futures. All right, let's take a look at S&P equities. This is the other signal that we can take a look at for the S&P 500. And this paints a little bit different picture. Begin at the open. From the open, traders were buying calls. That's shown by the rising orange line. Full alert comes in just before SPX reverses higher, as traders briefly stop buying calls. Then they start buying calls again, and price moves higher, so they are buying calls and selling puts. So we have the blue line and the orange line of both the S&P equities and the S&P 500 index signal all moving higher. That's very bullish, very bullish. All right, let's take a look at one last thing. So let's go back. Let's step back in time on the trace gamma heat map. Let's go back to 950, and that's when the reversal started. Let's go back. Let's go 10 more minutes. So you can see this was the very obvious target, this 6,700 level. It's almost a 99 percentile strike, but close enough in this otherwise empty GEX bars. And that was the very obvious target. And that is what Spotgamma calls the seek and destroy algorithm. that seeks these large positive gamma strikes. Step through time. In a sea of red, negative gamma looking for higher volatility. And there, SPX is broken above it's shown as the hedge wall there, but that's the 6670 volatility trigger. Up to the 6700 level. And then again, some resistance. Then a breakout above that level. Still on a sea of red. Looks like more consolidation now as the energy may be slowing down. It looks like some more passive sellers are starting to come in. That's shown by the heat map here in Bookmap. So let's take a look at Bookmap. Let me zoom in just a little bit here. We'll start with the regular trading hours. There's that reversal. Looks like it's right at VWAP there, that light blue line. Volume dots of Bookmap show market buy minus sell. And this is showing magenta dot sellers are exhausted. Aggressive buyers starting to come in. That's shown by the green volume dots. Pullbacks along the way higher to that. And then a breakout above the 6670 volatility trigger. Next, target higher, 6700. Heat map is showing some sellers. And then again, the large volume breakout above that level. And now we're consolidation. And again, the heat map and Bookmap is showing more limit sell orders up above price. And that looks like that may be helping to contain price. Let's take a look at the subchart here. And this is showing rising cumulative volume delta for that move up above 6670. Then larger cumulative volume delta again for the breakout above 6700. And note, all during the day, buy stop orders shown by the yellow line in the subchart have been helping to fuel that move higher. And it looks like large traders are actually fading this move with iceberg orders. That's shown by the light blue line. And it looks like so far today they're not getting their way as traders buy calls, sell puts in both the S&P 500 index components as well as the S&P 500 stocks. All right, so that's the S&P 500. Let's take a look at NASDAQ. And again, even stronger today. So right now, S&P 500, SPX up about 1.6% today, and NASDAQ up 2.6% today. And note the sharp liftoff. This is right at the cash open. All the aggressive buyers coming in. And up until about noon, large traders were buying the move higher as opposed to the ES where they were fading the move. So up until about noon, large traders are buying with iceberg orders. Rising cumulative volume delta, that's shown by the dark blue line, as well as buy stop orders were helping to fuel that move higher. And it looks like right around noon, large traders started fading the move with iceberg orders. We'll see what options traders are doing. So let's go back to Hero. And back to Hero. And let's take a look at NASDAQ. I'm going to shift back to the total signal for a moment. Or you can see the NASDAQ signal starting to turn higher right around 950. And again, there's that absolute gamma strike, 24,500. NDX did not quite make it down to that level before reversing higher. All right, let's shift to puts and calls so we can take a closer look. All right, so this is showing, just like the S&P 500 index and equities, traders have been buying calls and selling puts. In the NASDAQ, all right, let's go to the other signal available for the S&P 500. That's the MAG 7 signal. So this is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the stocks known as the Magnificent Seven: Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, Nvidia, Tesla. And this is showing traders are buying calls and selling puts. So it looks like the call bar is really dominating today. Traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls. They have to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure. So buying calls and selling puts. And NASDAQ. So very bullish day in both the indexes. All right, let's take a look at some stocks. And I picked out a few to take a look at. And if you have any other stocks you want me to take a look at, let me know. I'm going to start with Google. And Google was up pretty sharply before the cash open. And it looks like it is back up near highs of the day. So this is a very bullish opening drive. Quick move higher. A lot of green volume dots. Rising cumulative volume delta. Let's see what options traders have been doing at Google. So back to Hero. Back to Google. Zoom in on this a bit. All right, so this is somewhat of a classic bullish opening drive. Traders buy calls from the open. Multiple flow alerts get your attention. Signal significant options activity. And remember how fast that bullish opening drive was. And right just after 10 a.m., call buyers really took their foot off the gas. They actually were buying puts. And Google started to move lower as the call buyers took their foot off the gas. That fuel that had driven price higher was gone. And then it looks like now Google started to move higher and some call buyers came back in. But the main move was this morning move as traders were aggressively buying calls. Need to squeeze this down just a little bit. All right, so remember just after 10, call buyers took the foot off the gas. Price moved lower, but cumulative volume delta continued to rise. And then finally, the aggressive buyers overwhelmed and nice V-shaped bottom there, and Google moved higher back toward highs of the day, right around 318. So a combination of call buyers and aggressive buyers moving Google higher. All right, so that's the first stock. And I believe the, I was listening to financial news, attributing this move to positive comments from Mark Benioff, the Salesforce CEO, about the Google Gemini Model 3, how great that was. All right, next stock, Meta. So there's some stocks that have really been beaten down. Meta is one of those. So let's take a look and see what traders are doing in Meta today. And Meta continues to trade higher. Looks like about 15 points higher from the open. Let's take a look and see what options traders have been doing. Buying the dip in Meta. And it looked like there was a bit of chop first few minutes in the morning. Call buyers came in, shown by the rising orange line, and Meta broke above the 600 key gamma strike. Nice long setup with the break above the 600 level as traders are buying calls. And as traders, call buyers took their foot off the gas, put sellers as well also took their foot off the gas. Meta slowed down. Then after launch, looks like it is started to resume the move higher. But the biggest move was in the first. It looks like in an hour and 15 minutes, as traders were aggressively buying calls. Back to Bookmap. And the liquidity in the order book, those are limit sell orders above price, acting as targets for price. Absorption at the 615 level. And then finally, it looks like just before 12:30, those limit sell orders at 615 were consumed. And Meta now trading highs of the day. Let's take a look at Tesla. Very strong day in Tesla. All right, Tesla also trading at highs of the day. Let's see what options traders have been doing. So let's go to Hero, go to Tesla. All right, in Tesla, traders are buying calls and selling puts. And this is a bullish opening drive with continuation. Full alert comes in just after the cash open. Get your attention. Signals significant options activity. Traders aggressively buying calls. And that slows down a bit. But they're still buying calls. Tesla continues to move higher. And they're selling puts as well. Tesla having a great day. Let's go back to Bookmap. Rising cumulative volume delta, showing aggressive buyers traders buying shares in Tesla. And Tesla has broken out above the 420 level. And those were key liquidity points, limit sell orders, absorption before. Those orders were consumed. They came back in and then consumed again. So Tesla continues to move higher. All right, next stock, another stock, just like Meta, that has beaten down quite a bit. Robinhood. And Robinhood may trade more in sync with crypto, of course, than AI. So let's take a look. Let's see what options traders are doing. Let's go to Robinhood, one of the stocks that has been beaten down. Let's zoom in on this a bit. So there are a few call sellers right at the open, and then traders started buying calls right around 9:40. And Robinhood broke above the 110 hedge wall, setting up a nice trend break long. With that break above the 110 hedge wall, as traders are buying calls and selling puts. All right, traders continue to buy calls and sell puts in Robinhood, and Robinhood continues to move higher, heading up toward the 115 level. So that's the 5-point move in Robinhood, from the 110 key gamma strike up to the high liquidity at 115. All right, next stock I want to take a look at is Broadcom. Huge move higher today in Broadcom. I believe there was an upgrade. Broadcom held up fairly well in recent weeks, and is now making a very nice move higher, up over 25 points. All right, let's see what options traders are doing in Broadcom. All right, traders buying calls shown by the rising orange line. Again, hero flow alert comes in just after the cash open. Looks like a breakout above the 350 key gamma strike. Traders continue to buy calls. All right, back to Bookmap. There's that 350 level. Breakout above. Very fast, bullish opening drive. Looks like there were some aggressive sellers coming in, but the call bars overwhelmed. Then the aggressive buyers started to come in, shown by the green volume dots. High liquidity at 370.75, and if price breaks above the 375 level, the 380 level is next. Whoops. Didn't mean to do that. All right, let's take a look now at NVIDIA. And Gurdeep wanted to shift to the new version of Hero. All right, so this is the candlestick version now. Let's go to NVIDIA. All right, so I'm showing price for NVIDIA with the candlesticks. And right now, this yellow line is a 9-period moving average. So this is using the full TradingView capabilities. So Spotgamma is using TradingView as their charting engine here. And the purple line is the hero signal, and I can shift to the puts and calls signal. And actually, I'm not sure why that is that's not showing. There we go. Okay. All right, so looks like NVIDIA chopped around for the first half hour or so. Then some aggressive call buyers came in, and NVIDIA started to move higher. All right, so net for the day, traders are buying calls, selling puts. Let's go take a look at Bookmap. And remember, this breakout happened, looks like kind of a wedge pattern here. Broke out right around 11 a.m. All right, so let's go take a look at Bookmap. Go to NVIDIA. And it's interesting that some of the other semiconductor stocks are so much stronger than NVIDIA, like Broadcom. All right, so it looks like there are plenty of aggressive buyers shown by the green volume dots in NVIDIA. Break out of this wedge above the 179 level as traders started buying calls. Let's also break out above VWAP. All right, so Gurdeep, there's NVIDIA. All right, does anyone have any stocks they want me to take a look at? All right, let's go back. Let's check on the indexes. Let's zoom in on this a bit. All right, so it looks like the limit sell orders above here kind of putting a cap on price, as well as large traders with iceberg orders shown by the falling light blue line. And then aggressive buyers have stepped away, as well as buy stop orders that were helping to fuel that move higher. Let's see what options traders are doing right now. I'm going to shift back to total. And that's not showing. Let me go back. All right, so I'm going to leave it on total. Let's go back to the S&P 500. All right, so that line has now slowed down just a bit. Let's check the equities. And Floyd's Garage asked, hello, Floyd's Garage, welcome, glad you're here. Where in the channel are your posts? Are you asking about Discord? If so, my posts are in the Options-Jug chat channel, and that is under English webinars. So if you're talking about Discord, look over to the left, look for English webinars. And then I'm down a few. Options-Jug chat channel. You can see all my posts there. And I do post on X as well. My name there is @DougPless. So that's the equities. Continues to move higher. But a lot of the energy of the move for the day is gone. Let's check Trace. Zoom in just a bit. And right now that is a 6,700 is back to a 99 percentile strike. Let's check Charm. This would be buying support, selling pressure due to time decay. And it can help to identify potential pin targets into the day. So what we're looking for is blue buying support down below, red selling pressure up above, and that's showing on the downside 66.90 and on the upside 67.30. Let's go back to Gamma. Back to Hero. Let's check NASDAQ. All right, so the NASDAQ Hero signal made a slightly lower high, but overall continues to trend up. Let's go to Bookmap. All right, so again, S&P 500, finding some resistance up above. NASDAQ, looking still a little bit stronger. Let's check some of the other Mag 7 stocks. Apple. Trading up highs of the day. Very strong bullish opening drive. Reversal ended up being a nice long. Amazon. Another bullish opening drive. Back to highs of the day. We looked at Google. We'll take a look again. All right, so Google finding a resistance at 318, like it did earlier in the day. Meta. Still making higher lows and higher highs. See a few magenta volume dots. Looks like some sellers are coming in. Let's check Microsoft. Microsoft is another stock that has been very weak. Looks like the weakness continues. So here's the opening print for Microsoft. Looks like Microsoft trading just a little bit below that. Circle back to NVIDIA. NVIDIA consolidating. Tesla, last of the Mag 7 here. Still grinding higher. And let's check one other thing. I want to go check tape to see what instruments are dominating volatility options volume today. So I'm looking over here in this left column, and this is very typical. Key index components, SPY, QQQ, SPX, dominating with the top options volume, and then stocks, NVIDIA, Tesla. Down below, Google and Apple. Meta, Amazon, AMD, Palantir. There's the other half of Google. So that's why I like to trade the Mag 7, because of the high options volume. I think it gives me an edge when I trade those to follow what options traders and market makers are doing. Back to Hero. And now back, let's take a look, go back to the S&P 500. It looks like maybe starting to turn a little bit lower. Back down towards 6,700. Back to Trace. So it looks like SPX trying to return to that level. But in this negative gamma, wouldn't necessarily look for a pin right now. Maybe at the end of the day. All right, yes. Continues to chop around between SPY 669 and 670 with a lot of limit sell orders up above. All right, last call for stocks, last call for questions. All right, coming up this week, remember potential data releases coming up tomorrow. PPI retail sales. I believe they will come out, and I believe it will be September data. That's what I heard. Then I'm not certain about Wednesday durable goods, building permits, GDP, 8:30, and then 10 a.m. PCE, and of course Thanksgiving holiday on Thursday, and then half day of trading on Friday. And I will be streaming on Wednesday. So I hope to see you then. Hope to see you on Wednesday. All right, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Thank you for watching. Thanks for your questions and comments. And I hope to see you on Wednesday. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.